Hey, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day. This is Justin Reed with the Black Soccer Membership Association podcast. I would like you guys to actually click the subscribe button here on YouTube as well as the like button. See if we can continue to get this podcast going and up and running. So today I want to talk to you guys about the Caribbean. The Caribbean is a region that's extremely important to me. I always said on my podcast, I've always said it, both of my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, and I've spent a lot of time down there, as well as other islands, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent. And what I tend to notice when I go there is just the warmness of the people. And the people are always very cool, they're very easygoing, and they're very calm. And that tends to transition into other facets. So this is how it correlates with soccer. The FAs, the Caribbean FAs, we have relationships with some of them. And actually, when COVID kind of breaks, we're going to get an opportunity next year to go down to Barbados and meet with the FA and staff down there. But what I've noticed in the Caribbean is that the way they treat soccer, in a sense, has kind of destroyed CONCACAF. Believe it or not, a lot of people may not see it from that standpoint. But you've got US, you got Mexico and Canada. And I do know that there was some talk a couple years ago about Mexico Federation possibly leaving CONCACAF and going to CONMEBOL, where Brazil is, where Argentina is. And then you got the US. The US tends to always be strong in the CONCACAF region on both the men's and the women's side. Then you got Canada. Canada is up and coming. So because the Caribbean has been so weak over the years, I don't think it's necessarily helped CONCACAF. As you all know, on the men's side, CONCACAF has never won a World Cup before. The women, they have been, extremely successful for the US and for Canada, but for the men's side, we struggle. And part of it is because of the competition. So the Caribbean, I believe, has got to find a way to fix their problems. It can't be about how the Caribbean is as a whole, the people being laid back. That can't be the mindset anymore. Football is football, business is business, right? So business has one language. It's either you want to work at it or you don't want to work at it. What you put into business is what you're going to get out of it. And the same thing correlates with football. The Caribbean gets funding every single year from FIFA. It's about 2.2 to 2.5 million dollars. I think it varies based upon the needs of that particular federation. So, having said that, I think it's important that the Caribbean fixes their problems. So, there are about six major problems that I've pinpointed. One is mindset, the mentality. Sometimes when you speak to someone from the Caribbean in the FA, they tend to kind of know it all, right? They don't really want any advice in terms of what you got to tell them. They think they know it all. Jamaica Football Association, I'm going to call them out. I think they are one. The TTFA as well. Now, I will say in the previous administration with Mr. William Wallace, that administration they were a bit open, and they wanted to do some things in the US and in Canada, but other administrations in the past who I've connected with or contacted with, they haven't necessarily want to do anything. All right. And part of that is because of the mindset. They think that their little island is their island and they know it all, so that's something the Caribbean has got to get over. All right. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is efficiency. Sometimes you can call down there or you can send an email to someone in the Caribbean and you don't hear anything back from the associations. You hear nothing back. And you can continuously send emails. You can reach out. Sometimes you call and the number doesn't work. So efficiency, you're running a business. And when you're running a business, you have to call people back and you have to follow up. That's extremely important. The third thing is dependency. We do know that FIFA provides about 2.2 to 2.5 million in funding annually, but you can't run an association just on that funding. You got to find other resources. So like the US Soccer, for example, US Soccer, their information is very public. And you can go online and you can see that US Soccer, they have a budget of about $168 million. And they get income from all different areas. Marketing is one. I think that's their main revenue source, and that's about 52 to 53%. And then, of course, they get their income from their national teams. They get their income from different sponsorships, and they've got about 8 to 10 revenue streams. So the Caribbean has to understand that they have to do that as well. You can't just have one revenue stream that's coming in and expect to operate your association off of that. That's just not going to work. Now, people will say, well, in the Caribbean, they don't have much money, or, government isn't going to fund this or fund that. And that's because the Caribbean is very reliant upon the government. But they got to start now looking at sponsors. They've got a ton of major corporations, energy, oil, tourism, all of those companies in the islands will give money towards an association, but you have to be structured correctly. Okay, so that's important. The fourth problem is a lack of vision. I think there are too many people in positions in these FAs who don't necessarily have the vision and the know-it-all in terms of what to do, in terms of getting to the standard of, say, a Mexico or the US or Canada, which they can. But again, it's having a vision, and it's got to be a long-term vision. It can't be something where FIFA comes, gives you money, you use that money for the year, and then you got your hands out again, asking for more money a year later. It can't be like that anymore. The Caribbean has to have a long-term vision in order to have any type of success and to get away from that dependency. The fifth thing is a lack of accountability. And I think this is the major thing, especially when it comes to finances. Again, I'll credit US Soccer. US Soccer, you can go on their 501c3. So they are a 501c3 organization. And you can actually go on GuideStar, I think guidestar.org, or you can just Google US Soccer 501c3, and it breaks down all of the finances that US Soccer accumulates over a duration of time. It shows you how much is paid out to the top players. It shows you how much is paid out to, the president. He doesn't take a salary, but it shows how much is paid out to the CEO, the CFO, and that's accountability. Now, that's something that you do not see in the Caribbean. You can't go anywhere online and type in the JFF, Jamaican Football Federation, and see anything in terms of, well, how much does the CEO make? How much does the CAO? How much does the COO make? You can't do it for Barbados. You can't do it for Trinidad and Tobago. You just can't do it, right? You can't see anything. There's no information and there's no accountability. So that lack of accountability also brings about lack of transparency. And that can be very worrisome when it comes to sponsors wanting to give funding to fund these associations, so that's important. So those are the five, major problems. And I don't want to be the person that just talks about the problems. I also want to talk about the solutions. And I know I did pinpoint some solutions within the problems. So in order for the Caribbean, I think, to turn around, for the FAs to turn around, they have to, one, have visionaries. You cannot have a business and you cannot run an association without people with a vision. You got to have folks who are going to be on the same page. You got to have folks who are going to be selfless. They're going to give to the association more than they're going to give to yourself. So when you have people with a long-term vision and a love for country, then you stand a lot better chance of having a lot more success. Now, with vision comes structure. So you need a structured business, a business model. I'm going to go back to US Soccer. I think US Soccer's business model is outstanding, and it's because they have business-minded people who are either the CEO, the president, or on the board. So you need business-minded people who can now develop a great structure in order for your association to be effective. The third thing is also when you hire, you have to have good hiring. It's important that the coaches that you bring in are coaches that's going to focus on coaching, and they're going to focus on the technical side and focus on development. I was very disappointed to see this past year when the TTFA went through, you could call it a mess, you could call it a debacle, whatever you want to call it. But it was just crazy when you really looked at everything that was going on. And, I would follow the news and everything, but you saw the head coach, Terry Fenwick. He was literally in pictures with the president when it came to new sponsors. Like, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think that's the case in Barbados. I don't think that's the case in St. Lucia and other associations. But that really stood out to me. And it just so happened that here's this guy, he's the head coach, and he's all around wanting to take pictures with all of the business people who are sponsoring or making deals with the association. He should never be in that picture. His job is to coach and recruit, and that's it. So it's playing your role. That's important. And it was kind of disappointing to see the previous president, Mr. Wallace, allow that. You can't have that. His job is to coach, and that's it. So being able to play the role. Now, having said that, it's important that the president also plays his role. The president can't be the coach. The president can't be the coach. If you want to be the coach, then apply for the coaching position, but be the president. Your job is to sell the association, get it out there, and get people to invest in it, whether they are fans, whether they're businesses, whether they're stakeholders. That's your job. Your job is not to coach. And your job is not even to say, okay, well, let's hire this person. That should be the job of the technical director. That should be the job of the director of coaching, however you structure it. But regardless, it must be structured and everybody must play a role. The fourth thing, as far as a solution, is to open up the diaspora. The Caribbean diaspora here in the United States and Canada is about 5.5 million to about 6 million people when you count all of the islands together. That's a big number, right? So they've always said, well, if Jamaicans decide that they want to leave and all go back to Jamaica, I think there's something like 1 million, 1.5 million Jamaicans living here in the US. And then you factor in their kids, that's almost double to almost triple. So there's more people living outside of Jamaica than actually living in Jamaica. So if they were all to go back to Jamaica, the island would not be able to handle them. So that means you have a whole nother country that's outside of Jamaica that you can utilize as a resource. You got to do it. One example that I know, and it did work, was Hue Menzies. And Hugh is the coach of, I think he's the executive director at Florida Craze in Orlando. And he was the head coach who took the women's team to the 2018 World Cup. And I thought that he did an outstanding job. And it was the first time that a Caribbean nation on the women's side ever qualified for the World Cup. All right. So that's an example of actually opening up the diaspora. And if you ever listen to any of the interviews of any of the players on the Jamaican team, a lot of them have US accents or Canadian accents. You don't hear the Jamaican accent. So he was able to recruit quite a bit of female players in the United States in order to help the team qualify for the World Cup. They knew what it meant to train at this level here in the US. They knew that some of them had competed against the Canadian team. Some of them competed against the Brazilians, in either in college and plus the US team as well. So they were acclimated not just with the pace of the game, they're acclimated with the climate, they're acclimated with a lot of things. So that was a good example. Now, what's disappointing is what happened after that. So after Hugh took the group to the World Cup in 2018, they let him go. They let him go, and they didn't pay him. I read several articles that said Hugh Menzies never got paid. So between him and Lorne Donaldson, who was the assistant, neither of those guys got paid. And that's just crazy. Here's a guy who took your team to a World Cup for the first time in history, and you guys didn't even pay the coaches. I mean, that's just insane. And unfortunately, that happens way too much in the Caribbean. I remember reading a tweet, I think sometime back in 2016. Randy, I can't remember the last name, but Randy's his first name, and I know he was the head coach of the women's team for Trinidad and Tobago. And he took a group from Trinidad and Tobago to Houston, and he had to tweet and say, "Hey, we had no money. We have nothing. We need money." And that's something that's crazy again. It comes down to organization, right? So these associations must be organized, and they must take care of their players. They must take care of the organization. It's a business that you're running, right? It's not a charity, it's a business. So those are two cases there where the diaspora did open up and we had success, but unfortunately, the JFF is not any better 2 years later on the women's side. And then the last thing is, and I think I mentioned this already, but just forming more revenue streams. It's vital that the Caribbean has multiple streams. So the associations must have multiple streams of income. So I did mention this. So You just can't depend on FIFA funding. All right, that's just not going to work. You cannot depend on FIFA funding. You have to get the sponsors, and you have to get the stakeholders involved on the islands in order for an association to be successful. Just take notes. U.S. Soccer has done it. Canada has done it. Mexico has done it. You can even go over to Europe, and they've done it as well. So all those are blueprints that the associations in the Caribbean can take from, but they got to do it. And it takes mentality. And we can no longer say, oh, it's just Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, it's just Jamaica. That's the way things are done. Because I've got businesses in other countries, and that's not the way it's done. Like, we've got people who are diligent, people who are efficient. That's all I look for. The managers who run our businesses in those countries, that's what I tell them. I say, hey, look, if they are not efficient and they are not reliable, don't hire them. So there are people there on the island. So I don't want to hear anymore, oh, it's just the way things are done in Trinidad or the way things are done in Barbados. We got to stop that. We got to stop that. This is 2021. And by you all, in terms of the associations, not being more efficient and not resolving your problems, it is affecting not just CONCACAF, it's also affecting Black coaches, Black administrators, and Black people who are involved with soccer all over the world. Because this goes back again to opportunity. Right? The opportunities here when looking for a job in the US is very, very limited for soccer, right? So we've got to be able now to open up the door in the Caribbean. And if the door in the Caribbean doesn't open up and things don't get better, where when you go down there, you can actually get paid, you can actually make a decent living wage, the players can actually get paid, then it's not going to help. It's not going to help the rest of us who are living outside of the islands, right? So we got to do much better in the Caribbean associations, and we got to change our mindset. We have to change our mindset. I mean, we cannot go into 2021 with the same mindset that we've had for decades. We need accountability, we need structure, we need people with vision, and we need people who are efficient. And most importantly, we need a business structure, because without business, you have no business. Without structure, you have no business. All right, so just want to thank you guys for listening. The Caribbean is something I'm extremely, extremely passionate about. I would love to help any association that needs help. I'm here, give me a call. You all can reach out to the blacksoccercoaches.org website. If you go to info@blacksoccercoaches.org, you can reach us that way as well. All right, so I want to thank everybody for listening, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day.